Assalamu alaikum. May peace and blessings be upon you. This is Katie Miranda, and I am here today with Mel Mason, the clutter expert. Mel is a 7-time best-selling author and a sexual abuse survivor. She grew up depressed, suicidal, and surrounded by clutter. What she realized after coming back from the brink of despair and getting through her own chaos was that the outside is just a mirror of the inside. And if you only address the outside without changing the inside, the clutter keeps coming back. And that set her on a mission to empower people around the world to get free from clutter inside and out so that they can thrive and experience happiness and abundance in every area of their lives. Wow, that's amazing, Mel. Welcome. Mel and I actually know each other in real life.
Yes, we do. Katie, thanks so much for having me. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be hanging out with you.
Yeah, we've known each other for quite some time now.
I think like 8 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's awesome. Okay, so Mel, why don't you tell us your story? What is the path that you took to get to where you are today? And what painful experiences did you have to overcome to become the person that you are today?
Yes, the clutter expert did not get this name by accident. That's for sure. I was the cluttered, messy kid. You could not walk in my room. My entire floor was covered, and it wasn't just stuff. Like, I had trash all over the place. I was fine living in filth, and there was nothing on my radar that I needed to do anything about the environment that I was living in, except for my mom would get really pissed off and be like, clean your room. And that would never happen. If I did it, I shoved it under the bed or in the closet. But when my mom did it, she'd make it look really good. But what would inevitably happen? It would just go right back to the way that it was. And what I didn't realize at the time is that the outside is only a mirror of the inside. And at that point in my life already, I was what I called littered with clutter on the inside. And if you don't know what the clutter on the inside is, it's repressed emotions from trauma and loss. It's limiting beliefs that we accumulate from all the people around us as we're growing up until the age of 8. We don't know how to determine anything as being, we just accept everything as fact and truth, right? So whatever people say, we believe. And then you have resentments, fears, and judgments that you accumulate along the way. And all of that stuff just starts to accumulate inside. And I had already experienced a shit ton of trauma growing up at that early on. I mean, my parents separated when I was 4, and what kid doesn't blame themselves for their parents separating? It's my fault. I did something wrong. They'd be together if I did this. You take it on, right? And at the age of 8, I had already experienced 3 different sexual traumas from 3 different perpetrators. And by the age of 15 years old, I lost my older brother to suicide. Now, when I lost my older brother to suicide, I was living with him. I was the one who discovered his body. And in the same moment that I found him, his suicide note left all of his belongings to me, a 15-year-old cluttered mess who was already not wanting to be on the planet. I really didn't give a crap about what my environment looked like because I didn't even want to be on the planet anymore. I was hoping to get off as soon as possible. And so that really just set me on a downward spiral. Nobody expected me to make it to my 18th birthday alive. A month after my brother committed suicide, I got kicked out of my high school for being a danger to myself and others. They said, you can't come back until you get intensive therapy. And what that looked like for a 15-year-old was getting institutionalized. I got shipped off to a psychiatric ward, then I went on to a diagnostic center, and then they're like, you still can't go home. So you get to go live in a residential treatment center for the next 1.5 years of your life. But while I was living there is where my life would radically change. When I was living in this residential treatment center, I was actually introduced to yoga and mindfulness. And ultimately, what yoga and mindfulness taught me at that young age was how to come home and be present in my body for all of that inner clutter that I was on the run from and that I didn't know how to deal with, that I didn't even know was there, right? And as a result, I was a total sponge. So I was consistently practicing. I got involved in my local yoga center and learned even more, took John Kabat-Zinn's mindfulness-based stress reduction program and all of that. And as a result, after just a year of really learning how to be present for my experience, that cluttered mess that I was went from someone who was completely fine living in filth to someone who could no longer tolerate disorder in my life. And I went from that to someone who actually loved creating order out of chaos. And what that looked like was I just spontaneously started to create order in my environment. I wasn't like my clients coming to me asking for help and having hire someone to help me get organized. What was happening is that because I was willing to show up and be present for that inner clutter, I was literally making space inside of myself, removing all of that inner clutter. And because the outside is a mirror of the inside, it just happened naturally and effortlessly. How many would love to get organized without having to force yourself or drag yourself? Imagine that. And that's really how it happened for me, was I just spontaneously started creating order in my life. Everything needed to have a place and be in its place. Now, what I will say is I did not let go of all my attachments at once. That does not happen right away. Stuff doesn't accumulate overnight. You don't let go of it all at once. But the need to have order in my life happened first. And then gradually over time, as I moved over and over again, I would let go of more and more things till I eventually got to a point before I moved in with my ex-wife, I literally owned a bed, a bookcase, and a little side table. And the amount of stuff I had was like 6 feet worth of clothes in the closet that hung in there. And that was pretty much the extent of my belongings. So I went from that cluttered, messy kid to someone who could no longer tolerate disorder, and just over the years of looking at stuff, finally let go of most of my attachments to things. And that eventually led me on a journey. Like, I always knew my experience was meant to help others. I just never knew what that was going to look like. And I just kind of followed the breadcrumbs of spirit after that. And, being introduced to the yoga center, I thought I was going to be a yoga teacher. Then I thought I was going to be an energy healer, took Reiki, took Theta, thought I was going to be a martial arts instructor. I did all these different things. And eventually an opportunity happened where I got to take 6 months off in 2013 and kind of figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, which was never going to happen. I'm never going to grow up, but I did figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I saw the show Hoarders for the very first time. I'd never seen the show before. And with my background in energy healing, I just was watching the show absolutely horrified. If you've ever seen it, they make the person make all these decisions about all their stuff they've accumulated for all these years in a very short amount of time. And all the stuff that people accumulate over all these years is literally their Great Wall of China. And so I was like, whoa, wait a minute, you're literally just traumatizing people all over again and making it worse. So it gave me the spark for an idea to create a business that would help people not get that way in the first place, but also help them keep the clutter from coming back, because that's what I had figured out. And so I wound up in 2014, after having that idea, launching my business in January of 2014, decluttering spaces, and I've been in business ever since. And that's when we met. And I think either March of or July of 2014, I think, is when we met.
That's an amazing story, Mel. Thank you for sharing. Two things I wanted to touch on. First of all, the show Hoarders, I don't know what this means when I tell you this, but I can't watch that, because if I see a house like that, it makes me physically ill. So yeah, there's just something about that. What do you think that means? Like,
Well, it's really hard to watch. I mean, when you don't have the disorder, when you see that, like, you see it as this huge, like, how can someone live like this? But people that are living like that are literally a vibrational match to their environment. So it doesn't seem out of the ordinary for them. It doesn't seem like a problem. It's like tunnel vision. They don't know any other way. And come full circle, what's really interesting is that in 2019, I actually was on the show Hoarders. Wow. I was invited to come as an assistant organizer, and I almost said no because of how I feel about the show, but I wanted the experience of being behind the scenes and really seeing what they do. So yeah, come full circle. I was on the season finale of season 11. I believe his name was John up in Yucca Valley. So
Uh-huh.
I've been on a show of hoarders and I really got to see what they do. And I really don't like what they do now.
What do you do differently?
Well, they have you just come in and literally just start making decisions, and they won't give you one item at a time. They'll like dump a whole box out in front of you and start like, you decide what you're keeping and the rest is going in the trash kind of thing. It's
Mhm.
like so overwhelming. Like you can't make decisions about everything that you've accumulated in such a short amount of time. I teach people that letting go is a muscle that you get to build over time. And literally, if you haven't been letting go of anything, it's in atrophy. Like if you haven't gone to the gym and lifted weights, you're not going to go grab a 50-pound dumbbell and start curling. You're going to grab like a 2 or a 5 or maybe a 10-pound and start working out and building your strength up before you graduate. And so the way that I work with people is I teach them how to actually first bring their presence to themselves, because all clutter accumulates because you're just not willing to be present with yourself. The outside is a mirror of the inside. But then teaching them how to look at their stuff little by little, one item at a time, learning how to meet themselves right where they are and just make one decision at a time. And the best part about it is it doesn't matter what decision you make, you just get to make a decision. Because the clutter's accumulated because you weren't willing to make a decision, period. Now you get to make a decision. And people are surprised that when they actually become willing to look at their stuff and start the decision-making process, they will let go of way more than they expected. And on average, it's 30 to 60%. It will shrink if you're just willing to look at it.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm kind of thinking back to where you began to declutter yourself in your life, and you said that it was learning yoga. What do you think it was about yoga that helped you so much?
Well, it's
Because I mean, it's
ultimately
like,
mindfulness, really. It's really because basically we spend our lives pretty much on the run from ourselves. I was also a drug addict. I was also like super busy. I got into a toxic relationship, and all of those things, like clutter accumulates because you're not willing to look at it. The outside is a mirror of the inside. So what does that simply mean? You're not willing to look at yourself. Okay. How many people are like, I can't meditate. I'm afraid to meditate. I can't sit still with myself, right? I wrote a book, Freedom from Clutter, and in it, I talk about a study where people were asked, all the participants were asked, would you be willing to be paid to receive an electric shock? And everybody's like, no, no way. No, thank you. And then one by one, they're led into a room by themselves, table, chair, door, no window, nothing to do. Twiddle your thumbs, meditate, do push-ups, do whatever you want, sitting by yourself, or give yourself an electric shock. Over 50% of men chose to shock themselves over and over again, and over 20% of women chose to do the same rather than being still with themselves.
oh my God.
And so the most important thing is learning how to be present for your own experience. And that's what mindfulness is. It's learning how to be in a state of allowing and just being willing to meet yourself where you are, accepting what is. Okay, all this clutter's here, all this excess weight's here. I've got all this mounting debt. Okay, this is it. If you're resisting it, you're in contraction, and what you resist persists. But if you can get into a state of allowing, it's like, okay, this is it. Now what? Now you can make a different choice. I always like to liken it to GPS. Like GPS doesn't need to know where the hell you've been all your life, right?
Mhm.
It needs to know where you're standing right now and where you want to go. And so
Yeah.
that's what the state of allowing is. And what yoga and mindfulness taught me was just how to be present for my experience right now. If I'm judging it, being, okay, there I go judging. If I'm experiencing an emotion, oh, there's some sadness. Whatever's showing up, just meeting it and meeting myself right where I am. I actually have a client, it's because it's a practice I call it now, is called allowing the now. And I have one of my clients that actually calls it allowing the and her first name. I'll leave the names out of it. It's like allowing the Mel or allowing the Katie rather than allowing the now, because you're literally allowing yourself to be exactly as you are, and just be willing to to turn your attention towards yourself, because we just spend so much time turning away. We're like, nope, don't want to see you. Nope, don't want to see you. I'm going to stay busy. I'm not going to look at you. I'm going to go do this. Oh, I'm going to go do that. And I'm going to go do this. And I'm too busy. And I'm going to do this drug, or I'm going to drink this, or I'm going to eat this, or I'm going to binge watch this series, or whatever it is. But we're never willing to just be present with ourselves. And that's really what yoga and mindfulness taught me, was how to just be willing to turn my attention within and be present for what is. And that's really where the magic is. You're literally making space for the magic to happen.
That's amazing. I love your story. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, because this interview series is the Manifesting Masterclass. So I want to ask you, Mel, what does manifestation mean to you? How does it work in your life? And what is your method of manifesting?
I mean, manifestation is creating the life that you want. I mean, we were born creators. Like, we are in the image of the creator, whatever you want to call it, but we're all creators. And so just like the seed in a fruit has everything it needs to become that fruit, you have everything you need inside of you, that the moment that you have an idea, everything can come into alignment for that idea to be fulfilled. Like, I had always wanted to, I knew that my experience was going to help others someday. I just didn't know what it was going to look like. And there was a period in my life where I stopped doing the practice that I teach my clients, the allowing the now. But once I started practicing it again, within 6 months of just being willing to create the space inside of myself and remove the interference to that divine flow of abundance, all kinds of amazing stuff started happening. I mean, the way that I got to take 6 months off and figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up was that I actually manifested a $50,000 check in my mailbox.
Wow.
Because I was willing to just show up for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally got out of the toxic relationship and kept creating more and more space, I manifested the spot on Hoarders. I worked with a coach who had me write a book. I wrote it in 7 weeks. I was offered a digital TV show. And since then, I've become a 7-time best-selling author and manifested all kinds more money in my life and all kinds of amazing things. Like, I literally can't keep up with my life anymore. It just keeps getting better and better.
That's really awesome. And it's so great to know, like, this is how you are compared to like how you were when I met you like 8 years ago. It's just like a world of difference. So if you decide that you want something in your life, like, you want a digital TV show, or, you just finished your first half marathon, right? If you decide that you want something like that, what is your process from like want to actually manifesting it?
It ultimately comes down to declaring it, because what you tell the universe you want, you get. Like, when I left my ex-wife, I declared, because I was almost 170 pounds, I declared that I was going to get my 20-year-old body back. Didn't know how it was going to happen. Didn't know what it was going to look like. All these different things shifted. And I went through these different phases where I went vegan for a little while, then I intermittent fasted, and then I found rock climbing and all of this stuff. But I went from being 170 pounds to being in the best shape of my life, better than my 20-year-old body. And I get younger, stronger, and faster every day to this day. And I just celebrated my 44th birthday. So it's
awesome.
about declaring what you want to the universe and just stepping into the way of being. You get to be the way you want. And I just started suiting up and showing up as having the best body of my life, knowing that that was going to manifest.
That's interesting, because something similar happened to me. Not quite that way, but I've been pretty slim all my life, and I've usually been in like pretty good physical condition just because I've been naturally athletic and I like working out. But after I got pregnant and had my son, it took me like, I was amazed at how hard it was to lose that baby weight. Like, I thought I was just gonna, like shed it off, but it just clings to you. And I was really kind of irritated with myself. And I mean, just so busy with the baby and trying to maintain my business. But I just decided, like, I am not going to accept being this weight. I just won't accept it. I'm only going to accept being the weight that I was before, I got pregnant. And eventually I did get back to my pre-pregnancy weight. It took about a year or year and a half maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just, for me, I think in terms of like health and wellness, it has to do with just like, I don't accept anything other than the ideal health, the ideal weight. That probably sounds a little bit weird.
Not to me anyway. I mean, I when I started marathon training, I had to know what my body composition was so that I wouldn't be losing the lean muscle mass that I had gained from all the indoor rock climbing that I do, because running, I was actually concerned that I was going to get underweight. And come to find out, like, I'm in the second percentile now. Like, I was almost 170 pounds, like right up there with everybody else. I'd been carrying all that weight for years. And I just declared that I was going to get my 20-year-old body back. And I'm in the best shape of my life. And I got a test to prove. It was like just declaring what you want and putting it out to the universe. Then things start showing up for that to manifest in your life.
And you have to actually
effortless.
believe in it. You have to believe that it's possible for you.
Yeah, you got to make the declaration. Whatever you declare to the universe, like, has to happen.
So a lot of people, I think, they don't know what they want or how they're going to get it, and they end up drifting from one idea to the next and never finishing anything. How do you personally get clear on what you want and how you're going to attain it?
You got to remove the interference, which is the inner clutter. Like the power to get clarity exists within you, just like the power that created order out of the Big Bang, like, right? That energy exists within you. But what happens is it gets interfered with by the repressed emotions, the resentments, the fears, the limiting beliefs, and the judgments, right? And when you hang on to all of this stuff, when you have all of this stuff, imagine that every single repressed emotion, resentment, fear, judgment, limiting belief is like a cork you're trying to keep underwater. And we all know what it's like to try to keep a cork underwater. It needs constant effort, right? You let it go, it pops up. So imagine you have hundreds and thousands of corks that you're energetically trying to keep underwater. How do you have any energy to figure out what the hell you want? It's all going to keep this stuff pressed down. You've got no energy for anything else. People want to know, like, I had a client tell me she hired me because she wanted my energy. She's like, I realized after I hired you that I hired you because I wanted your energy. Like, people, I just ran a half marathon and I was ready to go climb at my climbing gym the same day. And my coach is like, no, you get to go eat a meal, go scarf down a steak and go home and go to bed. And I'm like, really? Like, I have all this energy. I could go climb right now. And she's like, no, but I have all this energy because I removed the interference. It exists within you. Like, the limitless power of the universe exists within you. It's not out there. You don't got to pray to it. You don't have to like be worthy of it. It's already in you because you were born human. You just have interference in the way.
I love that fruit metaphor that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It's
so perfect because that's the truth. It's like the seed in a fruit has everything it needs to grow the plant, to grow the fruit exactly the way it needs to be. And just as you were created, you have everything you need within you to whatever desire you have. You want to create a nonprofit to, help with human trafficking because you have the idea. Once you remove the interference out of the way, all these things start showing up to help you.
So what would you tell people who've been trying to manifest something in their lives over and over and over again, but it's not working? Are they like doing something wrong, or
there's no wrong? It just means there's interference. There's something in the gap. It's like, okay, you want to manifest this thing, figure out what's working, keep doing that, evaluate what's not working, shift it, and start doing different things. And eventually it's going to come together.
Yeah.
But you can't do anything wrong. I would hope that people would remove right, wrong, and good and bad from their vocabulary. I don't use any of those words. It's either skillful or unskillful, working or not working, but nothing's right or wrong, good or bad. There's no judgment.
So if something's not working, then would you just recommend like to change something, make some tweaks and keep
Yeah,
doing?
look at what, okay, so if something's not manifesting the way you make a declaration and it's not happening, it's like, okay, what's working that's getting you towards it? And then what's not working, change what's not working, and then move forward and then reevaluate. There's plenty of declarations that I've made that haven't manifested right away. And it's like, okay, well, what's working? Okay, this is working, keep doing that. This isn't working, let me shift that.
So I think what it sounds like you're saying is that manifestation, like a strong component of that, is just not giving up
Yeah.
and believing in yourself. And even though you may run into challenges or obstacles, but to just keep moving forward and make those changes, get help. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and everything is necessary. So even when you're having challenges and struggles, they're
Hmm.
all necessary to get you where you need to be. Like think about a flower, right? There's this seed that goes into the ground and then it has to break open, struggle, right? In the dark. And then it's going to shoot a root down into the darkness. And then it starts shooting the stem up through the darkness, never knowing if it's actually going to hit the light. And
Yeah.
it struggles, 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 struggle, and then boom, it breaks through, and then it blooms and just showers us with its beauty. But how much struggle did it go through in the darkness before it was able to bloom?
Yeah, totally. And you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of like after I got divorced, it was about 9 months before I met my now husband, and I went on 25 first dates before I met him.
Yeah.
And some of them were really awful, you
Oh, I'm
know.
sure.
And I think a lot of people sometimes just give up. At least, like in terms of like dating and relationships and other things as well. But you need to have that resolve that like the goal that you had is something that's beautiful and true, and it's like, why not, and believe in that so that you have like the energy and the conviction to overcome
Yeah, I mean, think about like
25
I had
bad
always
first
known
dates.
that I'd always known that my experience was going to help others, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. So it's like, oh, first I tried yoga teacher training, didn't do anything with that. Then I was like, oh, let me take some Reiki healing. Oh, didn't do anything with that. Oh, let me study martial
Yeah.
arts and be a martial arts instructor. Didn't do anything with that. Oh, let me do some more energy healing. Didn't do anything with that. All of these things then led me to be in a position to be like, oh, well, I love creating order out of chaos. And I have this really strong ability to hold really big safe space for people because of my energy healing background and my yoga and mindfulness background, that gave me the idea to launch Decluttering Spaces. But none of that, I wouldn't have got the idea for Decluttering Spaces if I hadn't taken all those steps and gone through all of that process first.
Yeah, and I can see how all of that training is like currently helping you in what you're doing today.
Yeah.
So like a negative mindset might look at that as like, oh, well, I tried this and I tried that and I tried that and it didn't work. But the way you look at it is like you learn this, that, and all of that training has helped you to become the person you are, who can lead people out of this clutter, like this internal and external clutter.
Yep.
So it's not a matter of, oh, you failed to become a yoga instructor or you failed at that. You gathered up all of these skills. And I guess you could kind of like take that into dating too, like with my example, and just like I didn't fail 25 times,
Right.
25 first dates. I just had to wait that long to meet the right guy.
Yeah. And you had to go through all of those experiences. How many times did Edison fail at the light bulb?
Right. Right. So it's kind of a mindset, are you going to
Yeah.
look at it as like, oh, this didn't work out, that means it must not be for me,
Right.
or I must not be like good enough, or and I struggled with this too. I still struggle with it. But and I'm just kind of thinking out loud here after talking to you, like um, that we really need to if we want to manifest what we want in life, we need to be able to look at our challenges as like steps forward to our goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's called like driftwood. Have you heard that term before?
Mm-mm.
It's a term from um kind of the self-help market, where if you have things that are coming at you in your life that are almost what you want but not quite, it just means that you're that much closer
Right. I
to
love that.
achieving your goal.
Mm-hmm.
um, So, what role does God or religion or spirituality play in how you serve others and how you work through challenges to get the end result that you want?
I mean, it's ultimately at the core. I mean, for me, I wasn't brought up in a church. My parents didn't go to church. And at the age of about 5 or 6 years old, my first memory of God, I was, whatever you want to call it, God, source, universe, whatever. I'm not attached to the name. It's just a universal energy to me. But I was standing outside with my best friend, and her and her dad were getting ready to go for a motorcycle ride. And my parents had split up. So my dad wasn't living with us anymore. And just standing out there, this knowing came over me that we're all brothers and sisters because we come from the same father. And at that moment, my life was just felt like it was directed, and being divinely guided. And so I call my life following the breadcrumbs of spirit. Like every trying this, going and doing this, it's literally just been following the breadcrumbs of spirit. And what I'm ultimately teaching people is to remove the interference from that presence that's already in you. That seed in the fruit is that God source, is the universe, is whatever you want to call it. It's not out there, something that you have to pray to, get forgiveness from, feel worthy of. Like, it's already in you. And we remove the interference so you can access that power, whatever you want to call it, because whatever you want to call it, wants you to be abundant, wants you to thrive in every area of your life. Because if you're freaking poor, you can't do anything. Everything takes money. You
Yeah.
can't start a nonprofit that's going to help people. You can't be a philanthropist if you don't have money. Like, it doesn't want you to be poor. It doesn't want you to be a drain on the system. It wants you to be fully thriving and abundant in every area of your life because it's your birthright. So it's at the core of everything that I do.
So, what would you say to somebody who was stuck in like a victimhood mentality because of past trauma or because a belief that they have that's holding them back? How would you help them to realize that they're bigger than their trauma and that they're bigger than their negative beliefs so that they can go on and have an amazing life?
Ultimately, the meaning in life that we put on things is only the meaning that we give it. And so it's how we see our experience that sets the stage for what we continue to create, because what we focus on is what we get. So if you're in this victim mentality and focusing on life happens to me, then you keep generating more things that are going to make that proof. You're going to keep proving that to yourself. But if
Yes.
you come from a place that life happens for me, and I actually take it another step further, I believe that life is created vibrationally by me. I am vibrationally attracting the experiences in my life to learn the lessons that I need to learn in each moment. And so it's a choice to be in a victim mentality or to be in a thriving mentality, knowing that life is happening for you and created by you so that you can be the best version of yourself. Because like the analogy of the flower, without struggle and challenge, you cannot grow. I do not regret any sexual trauma, finding my brother, any of those things in my life, because I would not be where I am today. I would not be who I am today. I wouldn't have the gifts to share with people that are transforming lives. I get the blessing of being able to watch people's lives transform when I share my story and clients work with me, because I get to share my experience and be so transparent about what happened and where I've come from, that gives people hope and inspiration that they can do the same. And so, yeah, there are people that I've met, people that, I mean, no comparison. We all human have trauma and loss that happen in our lives, but it's like what we choose to do with it. Like taking an example, two kids, brothers fell out of a tree, or two friends fell out of a tree and they both broke their leg, right? One had family that supported him and, encouraged him, and he saw it as a blessing, and the other kid saw it as a negative. Well, the kid that saw it as a blessing went on thriving and having a great life, and the kid that saw it as a negative went up turning to drugs and gangs and all of that other stuff, just on the perspective of how they portrayed the experience. So it's all in your perception and the meaning that you give things in your life. And if you can shift out of the victim mentality and realize that life is happening for you, and even an ultimate level is life is being created by you, so that you can be the best version of yourself and ultimately become one with God. Because you can't become one with God if you have all of this negative stuff in the way. God is light, purity. Like you can't have dross like in the light. You have to clear all this crap up. So you get to clear it all up so that you can become one.
Thank you so much, Mel. This was really amazing. And I know you have a free gift for the listeners. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Katie, for having me. It's always an honor to get an opportunity to share my story. I really hope this helped you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But I heard you heard me talk about my book, Freedom from Clutter. It's the guaranteed foolproof step-by-step process to remove the stuff that's weighing you down. And you can actually download the whole thing for free, because I'm the clutter expert. I don't want to give you physical clutter. I'd rather you download the book and get it for free than rather it collect dust on your shelves. So you just go to freegiftfrommel.com, and I'm sure Katie will put up the link somewhere. But you can download the whole book for free. And what that's also going to do is it's going to get you on my email list. I'm constantly hosting workshops and challenges for free that you're invited to, that you can participate in and learn more from me. And then if it resonates with you and you want to learn more about what it looks like to work with me, then we can just jump on a call to learn more. But if you just want to reach out and you want to contact me, you can just email me at info@decluttering-spaces.com.
Thank you so much, Mel. And yeah, the link is below the video. So thank you so much, Mel. And I look forward to connecting with you again and hearing about all the great stuff that you're doing again.
Likewise, my friend. So good to see you. Congratulations on your series.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.